How you begin a new hobby is crucial because it either sets you up for this happy and fruitful experience that lasts many years, or it crashes and burns like all the other hobbies you failed. It's easy to feel disappointed in yourself when you reflect upon all of those hobbies that seemed promising in the moment but ended up going nowhere. And believe me, I've had my fair share of those. I was into playing the flute, thumbnail design, and I even have an ecology degree that didn't really go anywhere. And I know that's not a hobby, but it's the same idea. It's starting something just for it to fizzle away. It's true that a lot of these are valuable experiences because they give you a sense of what fulfills you and what you like. But at the same time, a lot of them are just impulsive decisions that leave you with two things: a dead end and a pile of unused equipment. So how can you set off a new hobby in a hopeful direction? How can you choose what's right for you and then make that flourish into something that actually matters? And once you do get going, how can you make sure the hobby sticks instead of becoming this thing that you're desperately trying to cling on to in your spare time? I'm no Da Vinci, it's nothing like that. It's just that I want to share what I've learned along the way, and hopefully you'll find some value in the same principles. And of course, I'm going to try and do my best to include stories and experiences from my own life so that there's some actual weight behind my words and I'm not clearly making shit up. The feeling that you have to start something new can be really strong sometimes. Even if your life is already exciting and you have a solid set of interests, you still get this voice telling you to try new things, do that, start something new, start that business. And it's always there. And of course, that's a good thing. It means you're curious and it means you're not happy just drifting through life without actually exploring it all. But not all of those feelings are friendly. Some are misleading and others are just plain malicious because they derail you from what matters without actually adding any substance to your life. In the worst case, you're straight up lying to yourself. So before you start anything new, I'd slow down, zoom out, and ask the important question: where did this desire actually come from? Like, why am I thinking this? I talk about this a lot, but whenever you scroll on Instagram Reels or you go on the YouTube recommended page, you see hundreds of amazing hobbies pop up. You see people training calisthenics, they're doing carpentry, they're writing novels, and everything under the sun that is brilliant and creative. And what you see is the polished outcome of years, maybe decades of experience. And naturally, you want to do the same thing. How can you not? You want to join them in that creative pursuit and you want to get that sense of achievement and fulfillment from it. And then you start. And it's not like you thought. It's hard, it's finicky, it takes a lot of discipline. And you think to yourself, well, this is not how I imagined it at all. And most of the time, that's it. That's the end of the line. You drop the hobby in the past and the equipment gathers dust on a shelf. And that's a shame. Of course, not everything is going to resonate with you, and that's perfectly fine, but nobody wants to keep starting and failing and starting and failing. Eventually, something has to stick. And that leads us to the next question, which is, how can you tell apart something that matters to you from something that doesn't? The first question I'd ask you is, does this new hobby that you want to start nourish some part of your life that is neglected? Or is it more of a pointless addition to an area that you're already doing pretty well at? For example, I recently started running, and even before I got into it properly, I knew for a fact it was going to stick in my routine. So how comes? How was I so confident? Okay, well, I already had the gym, so in a sense, the physical side of my life was okay. It was passable. But I knew my cardio was terrible, and that was a big weakness that was obvious and glaring to me. I started running mainly to fix that. So even though it's a very strong love-hate relationship, I knew that it's adding to my life in some way. And we can look at it from the other end to see the danger of it. Recently, the idea of painting and pencil sketching has had a real strong pull on me. And I want to be able to sit down and produce the same level of beautiful works that the YouTubers who pop up on my feed can do. And even though it's amazing, I'm extremely hesitant to begin precisely because of this. I already feel like I have enough creative outlets already. I can express that through writing, through these videos, and maybe a little bit through the violin. So then I'd ask myself, well, is painting going to add to that? Is it worth all the extra discipline, the extra time, the extra frustration? Maybe not. And that's why I'm not going to start it anytime soon. There's also the question of, are you being influenced? Because it's so damn easy nowadays to get pulled along on strings because of just how powerful marketing is. Whenever you see something trending or you see all the big YouTubers pushing it endlessly, it's easy for you as the viewer to sort of lose your independence and assume that, well, because everyone else is doing it, it must be good and it must be something that I should start as well to fill some gap in my life. For example, I was sucked into the whole morning routine gratitude journaling cycle that all of the productivity bros recommend. And the amount of times I've stopped and started journaling is crazy. And I think the reason for that is I didn't truly care about it. I was led to believe that in order to be successful or to not feel inadequate, you have to journal every morning. And I was doing that, and I was being pulled along on a string, and I didn't truly care. Back then, I wasn't confident enough to make that decision myself. But today I think, well, I don't want to do that. Like, piss off with that. I want to wake up, go on a run maybe, or read a bit, and then just get working. I don't care about journaling. I don't care about all this morning routine stuff. And now I have the freedom to make my own decision. And that's why in every video, I try and make it crystal clear that I cannot tell you how to live your life, just like any other talking head online. So for whatever interest you have, or for whatever new hobby you want to start, just know where that desire comes from. And I want you to have the confidence and the agency to say no to the things that don't matter and to make your own decisions. The next thing to consider doesn't get talked about enough, and making a mistake here screwed me over so many times. The equipment you use matters, and probably more than you think. If you play the violin, then you know what this is. It's a shoulder rest. You attach it to the bottom of the violin, and it offers that extra support, which makes playing so much more comfortable. And this is not just a fancy accessory. It's such a no-brainer improvement that virtually every violinist will have one. So why then did I make the moronic decision to purposely not use one? Because until like a few months ago, I was going raw. And I told myself before that, oh yeah, I'll just learn to play without it. And it was possible, sure, but I was putting a pointless burden on myself just out of arrogance or pride. And as soon as I bought one and tried it, I realized how stupid I was in not using it that whole time. Your hobbies are already hard enough without your pride making it worse. So don't be stupid like me, and do listen to the people who are ahead of you, because they've been there, done that, and their experience is valuable and it comes from somewhere. But look, to be fair, that's a pretty niche situation that is based on my idiocy. The more common issue you'll face is price. Because if there's one common experience we can share, it's that hobbies can be damn expensive. You know, you get into photography, well, congrats, you're broke now. Or you pick up literally any instrument, and that's, hundreds and thousands of dollars gone. And if your wallet really wants to suffer, then you get into cars and modding them. It's a universal issue. And when you're just starting something for the first time, you're not going to shell out thousands of dollars for good equipment. That's irresponsible, and you know it. But then there's a hidden danger behind this wise decision, because you actually, in an effort to avoid that overconsumption, you risk going too far the other way and cheaping out. And that is going to come and bite you in the arse. For example, I got into cooking in my first year of college, and I still love to do it to this day. But I wish I had spent just a little bit more on some good equipment back then, because I was cutting my vegetables on this tiny plastic chopping board with this dull, short knife. And it was cramped, it was finicky, and sometimes it was annoying enough to just repel me from cooking altogether. Of course, they got the job done at the end of the day, but all of those irritating moments they caused me for 3 years were not worth the extra dollars I saved. I now cook with this butcher board from IKEA and this knife from Victorinox, and in total they cost about $70. Now I have the space to spread out and work properly, and I also have a knife that makes cutting effortless and even fun. And these are going to last me for years. So for that price tag, it's just logical. It makes total sense. You don't want to use this new hobby as an excuse to overspend and drain all of your money. So I would recommend doing some research and finding out some, solid beginner tools to help you get started. Cheap enough to be accessible, yes, but not so cheap that they make the whole experience a misery and push you away from the craft. However, even once you do have good tools for the job, it's really easy to overlook perhaps the most important resource. And this is something that can help you learn faster, help you avoid those beginner mistakes, and also give you a sense of progression and accomplishment. I'm talking courses, tutorials, videos, anything to give you a guiding hand in your journey. It's true that we have to take action and just get started, but at the same time, you don't want to be blindly swinging in the dark, just hoping that you'll get better by chance. If you find help from experts in the field, they can quite literally offer you decades of experience in the span of a few hours, be it through a book, article, course, whatever. It's the best thing money can buy. One of the richest sources for this guidance is Skillshare, who I'm excited to say are sponsoring this video. For example, I'm still a beginner when it comes to making videos, and the technical aspect of it still intimidates me. Thankfully, Skillshare has a whole bank of resources to help guide me through the craft, and to give me the confidence beyond the beginner level. Skillshare is a huge learning community with thousands of high-quality classes to enjoy, and that's from filmmaking to interior design to marketing and everything in between, all taught by experts who you can tell truly love their work. I always talk about the importance of structure in learning, and Skillshare perfectly captures this idea with its learning paths. These are a curated series of classes to help you really lock in on a certain skill, all without the effort of you searching for them yourself. Of course, I'm excited to get into the classes on writing, on language learning, and even the more businessy elements of creation. Before I get ahead of myself though, I'm currently working on this class on video color grading in Premiere Pro. And this is something that I've always wanted to do but never really had the guidance on how. And it's finally here. So when you want to dive in and see all that Skillshare has to offer, you can click the link in the description, and the first 500 people to do that will get a 3 months trial. So do check that out. So you've chosen your new hobby wisely, and you have all the right tools for the job. And that is good. That's a strong start. But just like with a campfire, you have to tend to it and keep it going over time so that it can become a meaningful part of your life and your routine. Otherwise, it's going to burn away into nothingness. And all of the effort you put in before then is going to become worthless. So here I want to share just some, I guess, not quick fire, they're going to be long tips on how you can keep that momentum going and sustain it. The first idea is a problem that you have to deal with before you start. Otherwise, you never will, and your hobby will never see the light of day. You hate uncertainty just as much as the next person. So naturally, you need some information before starting the hobby. That makes sense. But the problem is letting that need for information paralyze you from starting. There's this great quote from a General Stanley McChrystal. Some people keep asking for more information, and what they're trying to do is drive uncertainty to zero, so that there's really not a question on the right course of action because you know everything. But you can't do that. It's not achievable. So they become hesitant, they become tentative, and they become focused on getting more and more information to ratchet the uncertainty out of the situation, and they don't act. You don't need to know every single tiny step that awaits you. And besides, you can't, because learning is unpredictable. The problems you meet will likely be ones that you never saw coming. And endlessly planning before you've even started the hobby is like asking a girl out and then, planning a script for your first date. It's not going to go like that. So you may as well solve the issues as you meet them. If you're watching this on a desktop and it's easy for you, then you can try going over to my videos and going to the oldest ones at the bottom. And if you hover over them with your mouse, it will play a small preview. And just from that preview, you can see how absolutely dogshit those videos are. Do you think back then I knew anything about lighting or scripting or, speaking to a camera confidently? Absolutely not. I got my phone, I put it against the wall, and I pressed record, and then started waffling about something off the top of my head. In the months to follow, with every single new video, I learned something new, and I picked up a new skill. And over time, those accumulated into something that is hopefully watchable by now. And there's still so much to learn. I'm just at the beginning. If instead of uploading that first video, I told myself, well, I'm going to first study every single aspect of video making, this wouldn't exist. And even with that big pile of, advanced knowledge, it would be irrelevant because nothing's there to show for it. When you start something new, you will be bad at it. And that's the rule, not the exception. But you can choose to let this fact paralyze you and, force you to seek out information that isn't really going to help. Or you can see it as a friend, one that gives you the freedom to just create and just do something. And the information will come as you go. Following your hobbies will not always be fun. And you will struggle. That's a fact. It's not going to be this trip through the flowery meadow that you imagined in your head. And this applies to everything. It's a universal law that greatness comes through struggle. And nothing meaningful ever came easily. This sounds depressing, but it's not. I'd say it's the opposite. Because once we're aware of the problem, then we can better control it. And with that self-awareness, we can understand where these emotions are coming from as they pop up in our hobbies, especially during the tough times. For example, one of the most dangerous traps in starting a new hobby is the novelty of it. Because we love to do new things, it feels good. And it's the same feeling we get when we close a book, we finished it, and we get to pick a new one off the shelf. That same hit of dopamine happens when we start a new skill. But if we don't treat it correctly, it can really sabotage us. Alex Hormozy, the business guy, introduced me to this idea called the entrepreneurial cycle. And it describes 5 stages that every founder goes through when they start a new business. Now, I'm no business bro, so we're going to reframe this and instead apply it to your hobbies. So on the y-axis is happiness, and on the x-axis is time. And this is going to show you how your happiness changes as you start a new hobby and continue through it. Once you start fresh, you're buzzing, you're excited, and you can't wait to get stuck into the tutorials and, buy all the new equipment. But unfortunately, and ironically, this step is called uninformed optimism, because you're naive and you don't know what's coming next. After a few hours, days, or weeks, the mood changes. This is starting to feel like work. You run into frustrations, you see all your irritating mistakes piling up, and you start to see the hobby for what it truly is, and you are worried. This is informed pessimism. The frustration continues until you sink to the third stage, which is the valley of despair. Here, everything feels meaningless. You feel lost. There's no reward in sight. Your mistakes are piling up and you just don't know where to go. And you ask yourself, what's the point of continuing? Here, your happiness is at an all-time low. And this is where most people would just abandon the hobby completely. Are they right to do that? Maybe. You don't have to commit to everything after all. If you see the next two steps, you might not want to jump to that conclusion just yet. If you keep pushing beyond that dip, you reach stage 4, which is informed optimism. You know the truth now. You know it's not all fun and games, but at the same time, you start to see success. And you see that your hard work can pay off and it can offer something despite those setbacks. Maybe your skills just clicked into place and you felt a rush of satisfaction. Or maybe you finally solved that annoying issue that was pestering you that whole time. And if you persevered through all of that, you reach step 5, which is success. And you feel good about yourself. Now, this cycle may repeat. It's a fact of life that there are dips and there are highs, and we just have to keep going through them. If you understand this cycle, I find it much easier to push through those dark periods because you can step back and realize, oh, hang on, I'm in the valley of despair. I'm having a dip. I'm having a bad day. I'm suffering. And I know it's not going to be like that forever. And if I do persevere, I'm going to be able to experience that joy again. And it's useful before you start the hobby because you're not setting yourself up for disappointment. You know that there are challenges awaiting you and you're more prepared to face them when they do come. I've been doing some form of weight training for a long time now. I've had my injuries, I've had my ups and downs, and I've had many years of inefficient training. Most of the time that took place in this dusty old shed. And I swear it has enough strange chemicals floating around in the air to shave off a few years of your life, but that's another story. Back when I was most consistent with my routine, I was making progress, yes, but there was also a problem I was completely blind to. I didn't realize just how alone I was in that hobby. For years, I put my shoes on, filled up my bottle, and I went to train in silence. And I didn't talk about this to anyone. I didn't share the experience. I didn't train with other people. And yes, I was making progress and I did feel good. But at the same time, I was treating it with more and more apathy and disconnection, just like cleaning the dishes or, dusting a shelf. In a sense, I became so isolated that it no longer meant something to me, and it was just a part of an unconscious routine. However, when I got outside and trained with friends for the first time, a veil was just lifted from my eyes. Alone, it was easy for my sessions to get lazy and uninspired, but with friends, they never felt more alive. Not only did we push each other to improve, of course, but there was also a sense of friendly rivalry and competition, which of course helped us improve even faster. So then I turn the question onto your head. Is your hobby getting too lonely? Is your creativity suffering in silence? Would it benefit you to take your hobby out into the world so that you can not only grow with other people, but compete with them and push each other to new heights? It's a question worth reflecting on. And that can be through clubs, through communities, through friends even. Anything and everything to keep your hobby social and fun. Another small tip I'd suggest is to document the start of these hobbies. I don't mean a half an hour journaling session like all the self-improvement YouTubers spam at you. I mean sitting down and for 30 seconds literally just thinking about what went well, what you could improve on, and maybe what you learned in that session. For example, every so often I'll just get an A4 piece of paper and dump all of my thoughts about where I'm at with a hobby, my failures, my successes, and the things I need to focus on in order to get to where I want to be. I don't keep these either. Of course you can, but for me it's just a way to slow down and to reflect. Because in the here and now, it's hard to see what has to be done next. And this is a chance to gain that clarity. I saved this point for last because it's quite extreme, and you can get away with ignoring it completely. It's also the most difficult on this list, and that's why I think it helps you learn the fastest, and also is the best at keeping you accountable. If you want to get ahead, find a way to put skin in the game. The more you care about something, the further you will go to make it come true. And that is especially true if you have both a lot to lose and a lot to gain. So when I say put skin in the game, I mean make the skill public, so that other people can use it and enjoy it. For example, most of my writing in the past went completely unpublished. I have hundreds of Google Docs just sitting there and loads of notebooks with stuff in them that has never seen the light of day. Of course, I did my best to make them good and readable, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They could be masterpieces, they could be steaming garbage, but no one's going to read them, so who really cares? Now that I write for you with the scripts and the newsletter, I've set myself a bar. And I don't want to send you dog shit. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to betray any trust. So naturally, I have to do my best to produce content that's useful, authentic, and just fun to read in general. Is that extra pressure for me? Yeah, absolutely. But it's the precious kind. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world because it sets me a high standard that I have to then meet somehow. This sounds like a lot, but you can be really flexible in the way you apply it. You can go as far as producing videos, articles, newsletters on the topic you love, or you can just share it with people on a subreddit or a forum or a community dedicated to that hobby. Or you can, join a club in real life or share it with your friends or anything to give you that accountability. That's everything I have to say. And I appreciate you for watching this far because that was a long video. And of course, it's my favorite part now where I return the question to you and I ask, how have you dealt with this before? How have you been able to pick something and stick to it and to make it more than just a dream or a figment of your imagination? So my email is open. It's in the about section. You can feel free to email me there. And, the comments are open. So I'd love to hear your experience and how you've dealt with that. And of course, thank you very much for watching.